So let's have a look at why you might think media studies is a good option for you if you're coming to college to do your A-levels. So to join our sixth form even. So media studies, you'll see, is a split between it's 70% exam and 30% coursework. Okay, we're going to have a bit of a closer look at that in a few minutes. If you are thinking about doing media studies, that hopefully means that you're interested in one of the following areas, or at least one anyway, because a lot of people are interested in more than one. So newspapers, magazines, a lot of people we get are interested in going into television, working on online and social media platforms. You might be interested in the advertising industry and how that works. The film industry, you might be you might love films, and there might be a certain set of films that you particularly like, and this is a place where you can come and discuss those. Music videos, you might be interested in the music industry. We look at radio, and we also look at the video games industry. All right, so we actually cover all of those topics, and we have like really good discussions about how each of those industries work. We look at set key texts and lots of other ideas, and we're going to have a bit of a closer look at how we do that now. So in the first component, so this is part of your AS, what you'll do is it's one exam which takes up about 35% of your grade, and it's split into two areas. Okay, so we look at media language and representation, and then we look at investigating media industries, and we look at audiences within those. Okay, so what we might do there is we might study for media language, we'll look at a film, we might look in the film industry, and we'd understand what makes a typical horror film. Okay, and we might compare a couple of horror films to decide how we know which one's typical. Okay, in advertising, we'll look at a range of adverts from we'll look at some from the 1950s all the way up to some modern examples of adverts, and we'll compare them, and we'll say, right, what makes this a typical advert? How do adverts work? How do they actually engage their audience? You'll then also, during this unit, be set something that you've never seen before, ever, and that'll pop up in your exam on the day, and you'll have to analyze that text. And when we do media language, you're looking at, is this a typical product from that genre? Is this what codes and conventions are using? And most importantly, when you analyze those individual elements, what connotations, what are the hidden meanings within those texts, and how do they inform or entertain that audience? When we look at representation, we then take a closer look at the people within those texts. You know, we might look at representations of gender, so we might compare how women are represented in the 1950s to how they're represented in modern day adverts. We might look at issues of race, so how are different communities around the world represented in the media industry. Okay, when we move into section B, we start to take a closer look at the industries themselves. So we'll look at the games industry, for instance, and we'll understand how games in that industry try to target their audiences. Or we'll we'll ask for how an audience might respond to a certain set of texts because of particular features that it's included or some of the promises that it makes. We'll also look at like how the radio industry works and how the TV industry works, and just understand a little bit more about this media world. In paper 2, what you get to do there is actually investigate a bit deeper into specific media products. So we'll have a look at television in a lot more depth there. We'll actually watch a full episode of something, and we'll start to analyze it and break it down. We'll do the same in magazines, where we'll take a magazine and analyze that magazine, and maybe go into depth about how that magazine was put together and how the industry responds to that magazine. And then a new one, which is very modern, is like media in the digital age. So we'll look at modern trends, and we'll look at sort of like we're looking at YouTube and things like that at the minute, where we'll look at online issues and take a closer look into those. Then finally, you get to do a practical section. Okay, so you will put into practice all of that theory that you've understood from studying for the exams, and now you apply those skills practically, where you'll research, and then you'll plan a production, and then you'll go ahead and make it. So these are some examples from students who wanted to work within the film industry, and they've shown that by making film posters. But there's also opportunities to make websites, to actually go and do some filming and make maybe a trailer or the opening sequence to a TV program. And every year the exam board sets 4 topics that we can look at, and you have to sort of target their audience and work within that topic. But they always set a nice broad range, so there's always something for everybody. When you move on into the second year, you'll notice that we do the exact same units again, Okay, so component one once again goes and looks at media language and representation. But what happens in the second year is we will get either more ideas and more concepts to talk about when talking about those key texts. So there's some theory that we go into which is in a bit more depth, and we gain a much deeper understanding as to how connotations are built and how a film producer might target specific connotations for a good reason to engage that audience. We'll look at wider issues within the industry, and you might get a few extra texts to compare, but you'll still do that text in your exam that you've never seen before, and you'll have to analyze that on the spot and compare it to something you have been studying. The other paper is almost the same as those same topics, but in this paper, what you'll get is an extra something to compare. So in TV, you take the TV program that you analysed in the first year, and then you get a second TV program to compare it to in the second year. So you have to focus on both of those. The same with magazines and media in the online age. We'll look at 2 magazines, or we'll look at 2 examples of online media. Okay, and then finally, you get to do another production piece in the second year, but this one has got to be a cross media production. So in the first year, you maybe just did a website, or you did a trailer, or you did a poster. Well, in in the second year, you will have to do all 3 of those things. So you may have to do a website and a poster campaign. Okay, your website might also have to include bits of video clips, so then you can show off all of these media skills that you've developed over those years, over the 2 years. So I hope that makes sense. We are excited by our media students. They often have quite good grasp of English. They've done really particularly well in English at GCSE, because it is a bit of analysis. There is lots of overlap there with the English courses. And this prepares you then to analyse lots of different ways and lots of different media. And lots of students go on and some have gone on to work in creative media, like posts, or gone on to work at university, studying media studies to much higher levels. But it is useful in lots of different ways. So some of the computer science students, for instance, do media studies as well, because they're very interested in the games industry and they get to analyse it from both aspects. So lots of different things. But the best thing to do, if you've got any questions, or if you're not sure if it's for you still and you want to know a bit more, is get in touch with me and we'll have a chat. And I'll answer your questions, or I can maybe tell you a bit more about any one of the particular industries that you're interested in. Or if there's any particular jobs that you've got in mind and you wonder if media studies would be useful, get in touch and we'll have a chat about it. Okay.